I'm Nazanin. Welcome back to my Mehmooni. Today's guest is an Israeli comedian, peace builder, and activist who was invited to Harvard to develop a one-woman comedy show. She has performed in the US, Tel Aviv, and Rwanda, just to name a few, and she performs in Hebrew, Arabic, and English. In 2019, she was named the new Jewish Comedian of the Year at the Jewish Comedy Festival in London, and that same year, she was the first Jewish performer at the Palestine Comedy Festival. She was the subject of Al Jazeera's documentary Reckoning with Laughter, which followed her incredible rise in comedy, which was abruptly halted by the COVID pandemic. But don't worry, she's open for comedians Maz Jobrani and Sami Obeid. She's currently in development on some amazing projects, and her proposal to Mohammed bin Salman during a TV appearance went viral, so you never know what could happen. It's Noam Shuster-Eliassi.
Woohoo! Wow, what a great opening.
Thanks for being here. I love that you're multilingual, you're multicultural, you're international. So thank you for making time to be here.
Thank you. I'm just here on a very quick visit. So it's really, really, really nice that we got this moment. You
made it happen in 24 hours. Yeah. I know. I was like, I have to get her in here. I don't want to do a Zoom.
She's like, Noam, I have 24 hours to learn all everything the content and everything, the entire history. So good luck.
Yeah, I know. Let's dive right in. I actually want to start with your background because, oh, by the way, the MBS thing didn't work out because you just got married.
Right.
Right. Yeah. So I think for the best.
I mean, when we got married and I posted about it, people were tagging the royal kind of account in the Saudis, be like, she ended up marrying a Jew. What happened to the Saudi? What happened to the Saudi conference?
You were supposed to be the bridge.
Yo, that was crazy.
That was insane. I watched the clip. Actually, it was really funny.
It was the first time after I started doing comedy that like a joke, I saw what happens when something goes viral. And, prior to that, I was just an activist. And as activists, like you maybe reach 20 people when you try to like do something. Yeah. And then one joke goes viral and you reach 20 million people. You're like, oh my God.
Did you find that experience to be a little overwhelming or traumatic in any way? Because I find that attention that comes very quickly, very fast like that can also be very frightening.
Yeah, it was, I think it was.
Especially when you're talking about Mohammed bin Salman.
I know. I stayed out of Turkish consulates for a while.
Yeah, I would say that was a great choice on your part.
No, but the joke was that I just turned like 30 or something at the time.
Yeah.
And my Persian grandma, Muluk Khanum.
I love that name. So old school Persian.
I know.
It's beautiful.
And she named her daughters, like my mom is called Turan and her sister is Iran. It's like you can't, like, it's just like the
I wonder where they're just as proud as I am.
I know, yeah.
To be Iranian, yeah.
Are you Iranian?
Yeah, I don't know if you could tell. I am very subtle about it. So
yeah, I would have never ever guessed. So my grandma calls me and she's like, Noam, you're 32 years old. And now it's okay, you can marry a non-Jew. So I was like, Grandma.
They're like, now that you're old, we just want to get you out of the fucking house. Anybody.
And there were rumors at the time that there's like an under the radar kind of like warm up for a normalization between, like Netanyahu and MBS, and that they're meeting secretly somewhere. I think it was the Warsaw Summit or something. It was 2019. And I just got a spot in Arabic on an Arabic speaking channel, like on TV. And I needed to come up with a sketch. I was like, let me try something about that. And I wasn't really thinking.
Something totally chill and normal, like proposing to Mohammed bin Salman.
I just looked straight at the camera and I was like, MBS, marhaba.
Yeah. Kifak habibi.
Kifak habibi.
Yeah.
I heard you're speaking to Israelis.
Yeah.
You're warming up ties and you really want peace. So you can take a piece of me.
Were you, oh my God, were you like, you were sacrificing yourself for the greater good?
My grandma told me I can marry a non-Jew. So wink, wink. It was, I mean, I didn't even say it like that. It was like a bit more complex because there were so many elections.
Yeah.
I mean, Israel is such a strong democracy.
The only democracy.
And it was so strong in 2019 that we had elections every 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And Netanyahu would be reelected every 2 weeks.
Wow. What are the odds?
So I was like, I'm running for elections too. And I started a party and everything. So I was kind of like, that was part of my proposal.
Yeah.
And then, nobody saw it. I saw there's like 14 views when I went to sleep, and I went to sleep. I wake up the next morning, and my face is all over social media, all over the Arab world. And the headline says, Zionist party leader proposes marriage to Mohammed bin Salman.
Wow. Overnight.
Overnight.
Zionist party
They took a duck selfie from my Instagram going like this.
Yeah.
and like a picture of him like butchering a journalist somewhere like this. And
Yeah.
they put it together. You know, Palestinians understand like the comedy that I do in Arabic. So for a whole week, I would walk around everywhere and be like, this is Habibat, Naama Habibat MBS. They would like recognize me. And Israelis had no idea what the joke was about because they didn't understand.
Right.
But all over the Arabic media, it was a huge hit.
Yeah.
And then my grandma called me. And she's like, Noam June, when I told you you can marry a non-Jew, I didn't mean the Saudi crown prince.
Yeah, let's stay away from that guy for a multitude of reasons.
Yeah.
But speaking of a complex background, you know, because I even find myself the target of all sides of everything.
Yeah.
But I can't imagine what you go through because your mom is an Iranian Jew.
Yep.
Your father is the son of Romanian Holocaust survivors.
Yep.
So that's a lot of trauma in your background.
Like my Ashkenazi grandparents were like, here, take some Holocaust trauma. And then my Iranian grandparents are like, here's a Persian carpet. So I got...
You got both.
I got everything.
You got a lot of trauma. Here's a revolution.
Yeah.
But back to so how did your mom get to Israel?
My mom, so my mom was born in Abadan.
Okay.
And, you know, a lot of history of non-European Jews is erased. And I don't know much of it.
Mm-hmm.
And we don't learn about it in school. And the narrative, we're just not included in the narrative that doesn't serve a certain, you know, national narrative that Israel wants the young generation to grow up with.
And you're saying Israel has an erasure of Jewish identity that doesn't fit into their definition of what Jewish identity should be. And that included your mom.
That included my mom and my family. So tracing back and trying to like pick up the pieces of, you know, my grandmother was born in Melayer in Hamadan. Okay. And it is next to Esther tombs. And so, you know, in the Jewish holiday of Purim, she used to read the Megillah literally in a very, very holy place for Jewish people. Okay. And her kind of being uprooted from Iran is also somewhat of an erasure of, you know, our Iranian Jewish identity. And I think people don't understand it. People always refer to it in a very, very, you know, closed mindset. Mm-hmm. You know, Jews who lived in Iraq, in Lebanon, in Egypt, in Morocco, in Tunis, in Algeria. Our entire heritage and our entire belonging is basically erased. And we're also not allowed to talk about how much we missed it and how much I would have wanted that this part of my identity would not, you know, would not have been erased.
What exactly, not to interrupt you, but what exactly is getting erased from the identity? Can you explain
First of all, it's the sense of, you know, belonging, the languages. So I'm trying to think of my family's life in Iran. My grandparents were so proud of being Iranian. My grandmother lived to 96, and every day she would tell me how much she misses Iran. Yeah. And sometimes I would joke with her and I would tell her, Grandma, what's better, Israel or Iran? She would immediately say Iran. Oh, okay. And I think, and my grandparents are very like traditional Jewish, you know, I mean, you know, Iranian Jews are traditional, very traditional people. And I'm trying to gather from all the information that I know, what was my grandfather's life? I knew he went to the synagogue and he was a very, very like, you know, Jewish religious man. What were his thoughts or aspirations about actually, you know, Jews pray towards Zion. Mm-hmm. Did my grandfather ever have intentions of doing something with this, picking up the entire family, going somewhere, knowing that we are replacing other people, knowing that it means that your life, that you're losing your homeland and you're going, you know, and you're going to Israel? Did they know what I don't think so. I don't think they knew. Mm-hmm. This is from what I'm gathering about my family. And the way the Jewish agencies and the way that the institutions would go to basically, you know, recruit and go to big, you know, families and tell them like, you can move to Israel now. Like this is happening. Yeah. Like there is a newly established Jewish state, and you know, this big brother in your family is moving. We sorted it out, and this big brother, you know.
So they cherry picked people that fit their criteria.
I don't want to say. from the stories that I heard, and again, this is missing proper like research and us actually learning about it in history. But from what I realized, it was kind of like, these are the circumstances. The political situation in the Middle East also is changing, given the Zionist movement has now actually established, like, you know, and I don't think that my grandparents had the tools to fully understand what they are doing. Yeah. To the point where I told my grandma, why didn't you come to Tehran, Jealous? Yeah. Why did you go there? Yeah, you know? Yeah. And so, you know, so certainly there is like a sense of, you know, my grandfather used to pray to Zion. He's a Jewish man, but they had a Jewish life in Iran too. Like that's what people, I think, miss out in the story.
Were they told to not speak Persian when they got to Israel?
Yes, my.
And is that why it didn't get passed down to you?
Yeah, yeah. I actually, like, me and my mom don't have the same mother tongue.
I saw that you've spoken about that. You had a really beautiful speech about that I watched, and it made me cry too, because it's very, there's a lot of upsetting things that happen. Like you said, your family was asked to go relocate to a homeland, but that displaced another people. And then you have that aspect. And then you have that your other identity is getting erased, and that your mom, your grandmother, and then now you lost that part of yourself. Everybody's losing something in this.
I mean, my mom used to tell me that when she was growing up, there was such a huge pressure to be Israeli, to erase everything that was before and to speak Hebrew in a certain way, and to, you know, kind of like acquire this new identity that I still to this day don't know really what it means. And so Persian in my family became this like gossip language, where my grandmother is, you know, speaking to her daughters and they're gossiping. And I'm so good with languages that I used to pick up all the time what they're saying. And then, so my parents met in high school. So they basically grew up together. Yeah. And, you know, I love my parents so much. I am so grateful for them, especially now when I realize what they did for me and my brother by raising us the way that they raised us. Mm-hmm. My parents basically came from, you know, difficult immigrant houses. You know, also my father grew up with parents that survived the Holocaust. Like my grandmother is a survivor of a Nazi labor camp, and she was very traumatized, and she passed this trauma on. And
that stays in your DNA.
Oh, for sure. It was, and
you feel it's in you.
Oh, yeah. And my parents met in high school. They've been together for 50 years.
Mashallah. Oof. My parents have also been together for almost that. They're at 49 right now.
Oh my God. Yeah, how do they do that? It's
well, it doesn't happen anymore these days, I would say. Yeah, they have a secret.
Yeah, I mean, I don't have, even if I stay together with my partner, like we don't have that many.
You don't have that many years, I know. No, none of us. I've realized that too, that it's like, I'm never going to be like my parents. So they met, but then also you had a really interesting background after they got married. And you were raised in this community in Israel called Neve Shalom.
Yes.
Wahat al-Salam in Arabic. Thank you.
They're working on your house.
Yeah, Oasis of Peace. And it's the first, I believe, only community that has Jews and Palestinians living together on purpose.
Oh my gosh.
To actually be able to live together, and because you want to do that.
I love when other people like say the definition of this place, because I'm so tired of saying it. It's like,
oh good, I was
the only community in the country where there's
does this. Yeah. So that's the background. What made them want to move there? What was growing up there like?
Yeah,
because you are very outspoken, and so you know clearly it started somewhere.
I'm very humble.
I don't know if you know, but
I'm very quiet.
Yeah.
No, but so my parents kind of they learned and unlearned everything that they need to do like together, and they got so much political and social awareness. Mm-hmm. And I grew up in a very political household. My parents were protesting all the time. My father was in Israeli military prison for refusing to serve in the occupied Palestinian territories. He's a conscientious objector.
Right. And you also did that.
Yeah. Okay. I wasn't sent to prison because I kind of, with the women, there are ways to like avoid prison if you kind of tell the army the right thing that they want to hear.
Yeah.
And they kind of just like let you go. Putting women in prison is bad publicity, as the Iranian regime knows.
As the Islamic Republic does. Yeah. Putting Nobel Peace Prize winners in prison, common tactic. So, but what are the repercussions? So you had no repercussions for you being a conscientious objector?
I mean, once you are dismissed, so I had a committee. It was like a trial where civil, like non-uniform, like civil people were supposed to, have this committee because it's supposed to be
like your
neutral.
jury of your peers type thing?
Yeah, okay. But these were army people without uniform.
Yeah, they're not your
and there was
peers,
a rabbi also in the committee because it's the same committee for religious Jewish girls who are saying like, I can't go for religious reasons. And so, I'm like 70. This was exactly 20 years ago.
Yeah.
When I got the first conscription, you say, like the first letter that you like the draft notice
to say that you have to go serve.
I was actually with my best friend Ranin, who I grew up with, Palestinian, and she, we opened this letter together. And imagine like after growing up together for like 18 years, like you get this letter, and she was kind of looking at me and she's like, have you thought about this? Like, do you know what you're gonna do? And we were both sad. I couldn't see myself walking around in uniform after 18 years of being raised in a community where my teachers and neighbors and best friends are Palestinian. It's like, imagine like living together and calling it like a coexistence experiment.
Yeah.
And then you like one day put on a uniform and you go to your neighbor's house and you're like, hey,
I'm gonna impress you now.
What's for dinner?
Yeah.
Like, I'm just wearing the uniform of like the army that stops your family in a checkpoint. So it doesn't work like that. And one of the beautiful things that my friend did is she told me like, Noam, do you realize what's going to happen to you as like being an outsider to Israeli society if you don't serve in the army? Because everyone serves in the army.
Yeah.
It's like serving in the Israeli army. It's like having a sweet 16 with an M16. It's like everyone asks you like, what did you do in the army? It's like, where did you go to college?
Yeah.
It's like, it's one of the, and when you,
it's like a badge of honor for a lot of people.
Yeah. And and because my Arabic was so good, there were multiple times intelligence officers that would come to high school because they knew the level of my Arabic, and they would be like, do you know what you're going to do in the army with this excellent Arabic? And I'm like,
not work for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was clear to me from a young age, but it was also a process of making that choice at such a young age that like, I'm not gonna follow this path. Like when you want an alternative, you have to like be the alternative, make choices that are the alternative.
Leading by example.
Yeah. And then I had this committee, and it was a humiliating experience. As soon as I walked in, they're like, you're behaving like a traitor. You think because you grew up in this peace village, you don't deserve to fulfill your duties. And I told them I'm going to do like civil volunteering. Like I am going to do something that actually will like, and I worked in a boarding school with kids that were taken out of their homes. And anyways, but they don't care about that.
Yeah.
They care to humiliate me. And then the rabbi, the ultra-Orthodox rabbi, stopped them, and he told them, stop humiliating this young woman. Just like we have religious girls in this committee that can't, be drafted in the army. This woman is the same. She grew up in a household with different habits, with different beliefs. So thank God for like, chauvinism in religion. That
they infantilize you.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, she can't handle it.
Yeah, she can't. Yeah.
But because you're one of the most outspoken Israeli artists that I actually see that speaks up in defense of Palestinians, that speaks out against the occupation and the ongoing genocide. And I saw something that you said at a protest, and it was after the murder of a 32-year-old autistic Palestinian man named Ayad al-Halaq. Do you remember that? And you were speaking. He was a special needs student. He was at a checkpoint. He didn't understand what the Israeli officers were yelling at him to do. He ended up running away from the checkpoint. He was shot and killed, and the officer was acquitted. You told the story at a protest about how Israeli officers started beating you while you were protesting a few years earlier because they thought you were an Arab terrorist, and that your first instinct was to yell, "Stop, I'm Jewish." And in that moment, you understood what Jewish superiority meant, and that if you were Arab, if you were Palestinian, it would be okay to beat you.
But as soon as I told them that I'm Jewish, they disappeared.
Yeah. What did that do to you? How did that inform your decisions going forward?
I mean, this happened at a time where I was already pretty, I kind of, I knew where I'm standing. And then, living in Israel, Palestine exposes you to so much violence and so much hatred and risks, especially when you choose to speak out against what is happening to Palestinians.
Do you get threatened still, or, because of the way you live? Because you've been very outspoken, especially, post October 7th in support of Palestinians. So
look, I mean, in light of everything that's happening to Palestinian citizens in Israel who are completely like silenced and prosecuted and arrested every day for speaking out, and looking at what Palestinians in the West Bank are going through, and of course Palestinians in Gaza, and also Palestinian diaspora,
right?
That when they advocate for their own people, they're being silenced and
blacklisted.
Doxed? Do you say doxed? I just learned this word.
When the private information gets leaked online.
And so, yes, I get threats. My information is sometimes posted in like right-wing Telegram Israeli groups, and then there is always a fear that they will leak the address or something like that will happen. And I mean, if you push something too much, and I mean, this as an Iranian, like you never know when they're going to get to you. Like you never know. One of the things that I learned this time is how close I feel with Iranians that are just unable anymore to be the artists that they are in Iran. And I am wondering,
because they're censored in Iran, and you feel that you're censored in Israel.
Yes. And I'm thinking, and I'm thinking about when will be the time that I'm telling myself, okay, that's it. Like I tried my best to advocate for change and do, things from the inside. When is the right time, or is there even a right time where you say like, I have to take myself out in order to have a freer voice, because the freedom of expression is non-existent for Palestinians, and it is shrinking and shrinking for people like me, and people like me who are against everything that Israel is doing and are trying to expose it and trying to protest against it. The space is shrinking so much.
When you say leave and remove, you mean remove yourself from Israel? Okay. Move somewhere else.
Yeah. It's a huge dilemma that, many Iranian artists also have that I speak to.
Fled. Yeah. They fled Iran.
Those that have fled, first of all, they're living kind of like, multiple lives, because your heart is there and that you can't be the artist that you are when you are physically, there. And then when you leave, you are a more like a free, your art is more free and you can speak up freely, but you want ultimately to do it so you can influence your home and make it a better place. So it's a very kind of like it's a big dilemma. Like, do I stay with the people and fight with the people and get more censored, or do I leave and I say whatever I want, but I kind of disconnect myself? And people from the inside can say, well, Noam is saying all these things because she's now, which is kind of like what we're doing.
Well, I know that, like, you get to sit in the free country, in the free city, and you think you know what's going on and you don't, which I fully understand people feeling that way too. But it's always been, it seems, very important for you to be outspoken. Your parents, you said, you say that they're like leftists. Yeah. And so they've always been kind of standing up for the right thing too. I feel like from what I've seen post October 7th that, I've watched Israel, Palestine since I was a child, because as an Iranian, you just are aware of what's going on in your region because they're all interconnected. And because of what the Islamic Republic does and the proxy groups that it funds, we pay attention to everything that's going on too, but it's just something that we've always, kept our eye on. I studied it in college, grew up with Palestinians. So I feel like it was just always in my world, always in my zeitgeist. What I've noticed post October 7th is that I think now more of the world has finally started actually paying attention, and the narrative has been able to shift because of more people speaking out, social media, people actually now seeing the destruction that's going on, seeing the babies being torn apart and shredded, and civilians just being indiscriminately bombed and killed with impunity, food aid not being delivered, aid workers being killed. I mean, the list goes on and on with what the human rights abuses Israel is committing. And I think people have finally said, well, we can't ignore it. We have to speak out. It's the right thing to do in the face of the censorship and the blacklisting. But what was your experience like since October 7th? And I understand that you had friends that were at the Nova Music Festival too.
No.
Or you knew people that were there.
Not at the Nova. At the Nova Music Festival, one of my comedy writers, her nephew was killed there.
I'm sorry.
But the people who I knew who were killed on October 7th are people who are kind of like part of the movement. Some of them are anti-occupation activists. There's a wonderful guy, Chaim, who wrote his PhD about the rising of religious Zionism and the danger. And he would actually go every weekend to the West Bank, and he would physically try to separate and protect Palestinian shepherds from settler violence. He was a wonderful guy. And look, the way, I spoke, to his sister, and we know that the way he died is he was actually like blocking the door of his house, and there was a mother and a child that he was protecting. So when the door got exploded, he was actually protecting with his body, a mother and a child. Look, a lot of people who really didn't deserve this, and I think that no one deserves this, and nothing justifies this. For me, where I'm coming from is, for so many years we have been warning everyone that the status quo is not sustainable, that the occupation, the way we are living in Israel, Palestine, where as an Israeli Jew, I am inherently with my ID superior to a Palestinian person that is living just right next to me. We were trying to warn the world and to tell them, I am telling you as an Israeli Jew, and sometimes it's really embarrassing that people listen to me more because I am an Israeli Jew, so I'm telling you, where Palestinians have been saying this for decades and for so many years. And when October 7th happened, it was just a way to say, okay, this definitely did not start today.
Right.
We have been in this for so many years, trying to warn people that you can't really live in a bubble. It is frustrating to watch because people lack a lot of knowledge.
Yeah.
And,
and yet they go on television and talk as if they're experts. Like some people in my diaspora do.
It's brutal to see the way the Iranian thing is it's like, first of all,
the conflating of, that's like an entirely different topic.
I see like pro-Israeli propaganda who are commending the bravery of the Iranian people who are standing up against the Iranian regime. I'm like, the Israeli government doesn't care about its own people.
I know.
I don't believe you that you care about the Iranians.
That's how I feel too. And it's really unfortunate to watch. And
it's the same with the Iranian regime. Do you really believe that they care about the Palestinian cause?
And I've said
they don't care about their own people.
When I say the Islamic Republic doesn't care about Palestinians, they're using it to further their own interests, to fund their own proxy groups. We get attacked from one side. And then when you say the other thing, you get, you have to be, when it comes to human rights, you have to be consistent or else you're just promoting propaganda and superiority of your own people. And that's what I see in my diaspora. It's in your diaspora.
Oof.
It's
in my diaspora.
Yeah. I don't know if you're aware, but it's horrible to watch actually unfold. And then the people who should be speaking and who do have the knowledge, who actually live under the occupation, are not being given the airtime. And when they are, they're being confronted with, so much callousness and hatred and stereotype and prejudice and racism and all the things before they can even get to the actual point of the matter. I get really frustrated.
No. Nazanin, what we're saying is so basic. We should be running the world or something.
We should go solve. We did. Thank you.
We have claps. We have claps in the studio.
Applause, 2 applause. Can I get a 3rd applause? Yeah. We color coordinated without even knowing we were color coordinating.
Look at this beautiful termet. I'll just finish by saying that a lot of people reached out to me on October 7th being very mean.
How so?
Your people are going through the biggest massacre since the Holocaust. I'm like, bitch, I know. I'm trying to help my friends find missing people. Why are you not posting anything? There's a huge massacre against your own people that is happening. Why are you not posting anything? I'm like, I'm helping people I know find their relatives. There is she's kind of a high profile peace activist, Vivian Silver, who was killed in one of the kibbutz. Yeah. And she's like my mother's colleague. And me and my mom literally were on the sofa trying to zoom into every picture that was coming out to see like if we can tell where Vivian was heading or what happened with her. Like people thought that I'm just sitting at home being like, oh, should I post or not? Like, it's just
you were experiencing. That's the frustrating thing, is watching even people in America that, again, are speaking like they're experts, have never been there, have never lived there, don't understand it. And they're pontificating to you about how you should be reacting to something. I actually saw a lot of hate you got because you kept speaking up about this. Is at first, when it first started, we're all like, okay, this is a disproportionate response. Okay, this is indiscriminate. Okay, this seems like an excuse to just wipe out Gaza. And you were speaking out about it. And you were getting called a traitor by people that know you personally too.
Yeah, I mean, there were a few multiple very complicated things that were happening all at once. Because when I was posting about, you know, what was happening to like the people that I actually love and know on October 7th, I was also getting, you know, there's always like the margins on social media. So people were like, well, no, I'm like, I was being given the context as if I don't know the context. I'm like, I know that, like, I know why this is happening. And like, you don't need to, you don't need to educate me, but I do understand that people's frustration, because a lot of people see me as, you know, as someone who is, you know, I'm advocating for a certain thing and I'm speaking from a political perspective that doesn't lack the context. So suddenly when I was posting about, like, you know, October 7th, it was very confusing to people. Like, Noam, are you okay? Like, don't leave us. Like, don't leave, you know, we want to hear from the Noam that we know. I'm like, the trauma of being in Israel on October 7th for someone like me is just watching all the young people not understand that the same people who brought October 7th on us, the responsible people, Hamas committed October 7th, but the people who are making it worse is the government. The Israeli government, the most fascist right-wing government in the history of Israel. Not that we lacked fascist government, but this is what one is even like, you know.
Well, what's his name that's in there now? Ben Gvir. I remember in that case that I was just talking to you about the autistic Palestinian boy, when the mother and father of this boy were seeking justice for his killing, he called them terrorists. Like, this guy's the fucking worst. And he, you know they're not sending their best.
He's labeled he was labeled a Jewish terrorist.
Yes, he was.
People complained to me that I didn't serve in the army. This guy didn't serve in the army because the army wouldn't even inscript him. Like they
thought he was too
he's a
insane.
Like, he's wanted by the secret services, like for being like the Hilltop Youth and doing, anyways. I mean,
very
he's a
Trumpian, I must say.
Oof. And Smotrich is his best friend in the coalition that said that Hamas is an asset for Israel. All the information is out there for people, and the frustration of being in Israel at that time is to watch young people not understand that the same people who brought this on us will never be able to get us out of it.
Yeah.
And seeing people put on their uniform and going into a mission as if they know what they're doing and as if this government is not just sending them for nothing. And, you know, I had this, like, I didn't imagine that they will suppress our protesting so much.
In Israel.
Yeah. It took a long time till anyone could start protesting. And I'm talking about even like the hostage families, whom I don't know if they
were treated like shit.
Yes, still are. And so what the government is doing, and, you know, Netanyahu like takes sometimes hostage families with him to
photo op.
Yeah, photo op, or like the UN or whatever, where ironically he's the only person that has the keys to return their families from Gaza. Like, have a ceasefire, make a deal. And then he goes, Hamas should release the hostages. No,
also, for being from a country where you claim that your army is extremely precise and has the best technology and is the most capable, why aren't you capable of targeted strikes that we've seen that you're capable of doing in places like Iran and other parts of the world? Why aren't you then having those targeted attacks that instead of indiscriminately killing people? So then, of course, it makes you wonder, well, I wonder what the goal really is.
Yeah, no, look, I mean, because I understand Hebrew and I hear the way people are speaking and the way the media is allowing, you know, genocidal rhetoric that allow genocidal actions, that allow genocidal tactics, that allow, you know, dehumanization that leads to genocide. And, you know, as a granddaughter of a Holocaust survivor, I don't think I can still find the words to explain how.
Yeah.
yeah, it's definitely not the legacy that I thought or I wished for my people. I can't imagine, being Palestinian at this time and watching your people get displaced and bombed and starved and dehumanized. And I think that on one hand, it is making me feel a lot of despair, but also I think there is going to be a need for so much more work than we ever even knew before. I mean, we have to we have to step up. We have to make sure that we do everything that we can to save every life that we can. And we have to make sure that it's very, very sad for me that the Palestinian cause is now on the radar when so many people have to die because of it. We shouldn't have reached this stage where people care so much after so many lives have
already been taken.
Yeah, I wish this amount of attention could have happened without so much death and destruction.
Yeah.
But I think that our role is to, continue fighting. Like, the option to give up is just like, it's not
possible. And
it's solidarity, it's protesting, it's making sure that more and more young people understand what I'm saying so that they can, pose an alternative. I mean, it's been like this in the past where a very small minority of people were saying very, very, people thought, oh no, there is no chance. But we will never be free until Palestinians are free. And also when we talk about the freedom of Palestinians, I think it's important for people to understand that, as an Israeli Jew, I would also like my people to be free of being occupiers.
Yeah. Because that carries its own burden for you.
No, it's like, when we say these like slogans, in protest, none of us are free until we are all free, right? And it's a slogan and it's nice in protests or whatever. But until the women of Iran aren't free and until Palestinians don't have the same equal rights that we have, we are just not free. I mean, look at us. We're sitting here, like you and I, and we are not free until they're free. Like, it's very true to me and you as well. It's not just like...
Yeah, we don't feel like there's not a just world at this point. If I get to sit here in Los Angeles and talk about things and I don't have the threat of an army rushing through the door because of what I say or being tortured, raped, executed in prison, bombed indiscriminately, I have a privilege. So I and you, who, when you're here too, have a privilege. We have to use our platform to actually speak out and amplify. The main point being that, you said we have to rebuild also, which is I really agree with, because there's so much hatred from a lot of sides that, again, don't have the experience of seeing what it's like for Palestinians under occupation. And I think it's so important for people like you to speak out. I mean, of course, in addition to actual Palestinians being platformed, it's important for people who are Israeli and who live there to come and say, hey, actually, this is what happens. This is what life is like. I have the experience. I know what's going on. And to continuously speak out the way that you do. And we have to continue to bridge these divides and gaps, because if, the media still spins their own narrative and dehumanizes in a way where that's how mass killings, that's how genocide can happen. Once you dehumanize people and make people associate them with or have them synonymous with a lesser than creature, it doesn't register on people's radar when they are being killed. I mean, I've seen the disgusting things online when babies are getting their literal heads blown off and you see, well, they were going to grow up to be a terrorist anyway. So we have to and I've seen that with my own eyes from people, like real people. These are not bots. These are real accounts. And
imagine living next to them.
I can't imagine it. I really can't. Since we only have a short amount of time left, I did want to play a little game with you.
Yay!
Let's end everything with a game. It'll be really quick. And it's called Who Done It? The Islamic Republic or Israel?
Ooh, interesting.
Because as we know, the Islamic Republic is a murderous theocratic dictatorship that subjugates women and employs gender apartheid to do so, and is the absolute antithesis to democracy, funds terror proxies, etc. Israel touts itself as the only democracy in the Middle East. So let's see how they compare.
Okay. So you ask me.
So I'm going to ask you a question and then I'm going to say, is this the Islamic Republic or Israel?
Okay.
Okay. Which country has deemed gay marriage not permissible? The Islamic Republic or Israel?
Ooh. Both.
Yeah, you got it right. You're not high-fiving to admit not being permissible. Yeah. I hope that's clear.
In Tel Aviv, it's such a huge, like, pride city, but gay people
they can't get married. Okay. Which country censors the press and has killed journalists? The Islamic Republic or Israel?
Both?
Oh, you are correct.
God, crazy.
Both countries censor the press and have killed journalists. Interesting. Okay. Which country arrests people for social media posts made in support of protesters? The Islamic Republic or Israel?
This one's a tough one.
It is tough.
Like,
yeah.
Let me see if...
And you're on social media a lot, so you would know.
Yeah.
You live there, so...
I want to say both.
You're right. Again. Wow, you're really good at this game. Which country has indiscriminately and with impunity killed thousands of children and placed the blame on others? The Islamic Republic or Israel?
Both.
That is also both. Correct. Which country has punished teachers for declarations of sympathy for the death of innocent civilians? The Islamic Republic or Israel?
Both.
Wow.
I think I got the game by now.
Yeah. Which country uses religion as a shield for their human rights abuses? The Islamic Republic or Israel?
Both.
Wow, they just have so much in common despite thinking
a match made in heaven.
Where I wish they would all not see.
Yep.
Thank you for playing that game with me. An extremely depressing game.
So depressing.
Extremely depressing. I have an idea.
Yeah.
Since there's a lovely book of Hafez behind you, which is really important in Persian culture, and you can grab it. On Nowruz, which is the Persian New Year, one of the things that we do culturally is we sit around our hafsin, which is the table that has all of the traditional things for the Persian New Year.
And look at this.
I know, and we have our nuts, we have some shirini, some sweets, we have our tea. And we open the book, and whatever page it falls on is supposed to be kind of like our fortune for the year. So why don't we open a page together and read the poem and hopefully end on a more hopeful note.
Let's go. Let's do it.
I'll put my, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put my hand on your hand and you do it.
Okay. Okay. Is this the middle of a poem?
I think it's going to be the middle, but we have the interpretation.
Do you read Persian?
I do read Persian. I do.
But
this is also like calligraphy Persian, which is going to take me a lot longer.
Too sophisticated.
So we're going to do the English translation of it anyway no, actually, yeah, it is this page. At eternity, rays of God's beauty did transpire. Love appeared and put all existence to fire. Later, God sent Adam his glowing zeal, for to the angel gods, love did not appeal. Wisdom desired some light from God's torch, but was scolded by God's compassionate scorch. A stranger desired God's secrecy with zest, but a hidden hand hit him angrily on the chest. All humans had their share of pleasure and fun. My sore heart remained in misery alone. Her chin's apple, my lofty soul desires, though entrapped in her locks, her beauty admires. Hafez, only when happiness broke its pen, your love story was to be written then. And here's the interpretation. It says, love is the beginning of creation. Love is stronger than wisdom or anything else. What you do now is based on love and not on wisdom. If other persons try to interfere with your love, they will be defeated. You may think that all other human beings are happy except you, but this is not so. It is true, though, that in your efforts, you will face lots of difficulties. And often you will think that you are the only one faced with so great troubles.
Wow.
What's your interpretation of that?
First of all, Iranians can be very deep and depressing.
So beautiful, so poetic. Also, it's a blend of happiness and sadness.
Yeah. You know, I took, when I was at Harvard trying to work on my comedy show, I took a Persian class at Harvard because I was trying to translate some of my jokes. So one of the jokes had the word fun in it and I wanted to find the right word. So I came to the professor and I'm like, how would you say fun? He's like, no, fun is not central to our experience.
Oh. Okay. Yeah. And there's also like 8 different words for it.
I know, yeah.
And
like bazi. There are many different words.
Squishy.
Yeah.
How would you take that?
It's beautiful. I didn't quite get it.
I'll tell you. Let me tell you what I took from it.
No, okay. I feel like I want to read another one, but no, but you say.
Well, because of what we just kind of ended on, we were saying that we all have to, kind of keep pushing forward and promoting the peace and bridging the gaps together. And it was talking about how everybody has to come from a place of love, and for certain things that are, maybe more nefarious to be defeated. And that when it feels like maybe you think I'm the only one struggling, I'm the only one feeling like this, you might feel alone in your quest sometimes because of the way that you're outspoken, et cetera. You're actually not alone, that there's a lot more people that actually feel like you and have that love in their hearts, and the evil will be defeated.
Be'omid Khuda.
Be'omid Khuda. No, Noam John, thank you so much for coming. It was such a pleasure. I'm so glad I got to talk to you. We're going to do it again for sure. Hopefully next time you're back in Los Angeles.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you for doing this work.
Thank you for doing this work. Oh my God, thank you.
So pretty and so talented.
Oh God.
I'm going to follow you, I think.
Are we still rolling here? Thank you guys for coming to my Mehmooni with Noam. We'll see you next time.
Yay! Yo, this was fun.
It was really great. Thanks for coming. Oh my God.